fake meat, what it is, different types, agenda, and the solutions. So I'm going to be talking about fake meat today, and I'll get into some other plant-based alternatives and the issues with those. But I want to do a show about this because there's a lot of questions. Even though I think we can rely on our common sense of what is real and what isn't, I think you're going to be shocked by some of the things that you hear today, and perhaps you can educate other people, because a lot of people, if they're not in the health space, they may think that these alternatives are actually healthy. And we're going to go into why that is and get some solutions on the table. So fake meat is essentially a plant-based alternative to meat that is supposed to taste and look exactly like it. Now, the first question that comes to mind is like, say vegans, for example, like if we're so against meat, why are we trying to create something that is exactly like it? Like, it's kind of like as a kid, you're told not to do something, but you want it that much more. It might be that type of thing. Another thing to keep in mind is that Billy G, he owns more farmland than anyone in the entire world. All right? Billy G. He's trying to get that synthetic meat in you. And all the seed companies are really owned by like 5 companies, like 5 major seed companies. And like all the small farms are kind of being bought up by these massive companies. And it's kind of an unfortunate situation because small farms, like the regenerative agriculture, that's very important. Like there's a story going on that we can't feed the world. So we have to come up with these ridiculous solutions. Now, the guys in the big tech, they all have their solutions, right? But unfortunately, when you actually look at what is real, when you actually talk to regenerative agriculture farmers and you look at the data and things that are not covered up, it is 100% possible to feed the entire world based on regenerative agriculture. And I may do a whole show on that at some point. But basically, it grows land, essentially. Doing things in the right way that makes the land regenerate. Just like I mentioned before, out of the soda industry, they kind of cover up research so they can make their industries bigger. And until we get past the point where we actually care about people more than we do our own business, we're going to have this problem. And what we have to come to the solution is that the more we do care about people in a real way, like that, our business is actually going to get better. That's what we need to come down to. And it really comes down to solving that within ourselves and our own character. Another thing I want to say is that all dietary frameworks are welcome. Like everything has its place as long as you work on certain principles and doing things that work for you. But ultimately, if something's not working for you, give yourself permission to change. So if we look at the ingredients of the Impossible Burger, we got water, soy protein, concentrate, sunflower oil, coconut oil, natural flavors, 2% or less of methyl cellulose, cultured dextrose, food starch, modified yeast extract, soy, leg hemoglobin, which I'll get into, salt, mixed tocopherols, L-tryptophan, and soy protein isolate. So, word on soy, real quick. Now, soy has been used for thousands of years in ancient cultures. But the way we use it today is so different. Like back then, we would ferment it. We would use it as more as a condiment. Like especially in Asia, that's kind of how they did it, like miso and things like that. But today, we kind of go into something like we curate tofurkey. It's literally turkey that's supposed to look and taste like turkey, but it's soy protein. It's ridiculous. And the thing about plant-based protein is that it's usually not a complete protein. So it does not have all the amino acids necessary. So you need to kind of combine things. Now, soy also contains a lot of xenoestrogens, or estrogens that kind of mimic estrogen receptors within the body. So a lot of men kind of get gynecomastia, or man boobs. And this is part of the reason. Another thing is like microplastics, the environment. And again, estrogen dominance in women can lead to things like breast cancer. So we got to be careful of these things. And there are some people who say like the soy has types of estrogen doesn't really convert. But again, like we've been soaking and sprouting these things for thousands of years. That's another thing. Like I talk about fermentation and other shows, but rendering these things much more digestible, and it's something like nobody really thinks about in the first place. So it's very abnormal to be consuming very large amounts of these things as a replacement for what is real. But now the difference between like the fake meat and the plant-based alternatives is soy, leg hemoglobin. So like the things that like Bill Gates makes, like these are in the food nuclear reactors. All right, that's how they make them. And if you see like videos of this, like it just looks like this toxic paste that's in a sludge, and then it comes up. And apparently, it's just like meat, right? I've never had it and never will. The problem here is kind of making things appear healthy when they're not. And he does not seem like a picture of health in the first place. And we got canola oil, sunflower oil. Like these are vegetable oils, right? These are highly processed industrialized seed oils that we know, we've talked about many times, are the worst thing you can possibly consume when it comes to nutrition. And these are being touted as healthy. Something created in the lab is healthier than has been something we've been using for millennia. Beyond Burger, we have water, pea protein, expeller pressed canola oil, refined coconut oil, rice protein, natural flavors, dried yeast, cocoa butter, methyl cellulose contains less than 1% of potato starch, salt, potassium chloride, beet juice color, apple extract, pomegranate concentrate, sunflower lecithin, vinegar, lemon juice concentrate, vitamins, minerals. Another thing to keep in mind is they add a lot of food coloring, additives. Like, it's kind of ridiculous that these are being propped up as healthy. So why do they want you to eat this? Well, they say it's better for the environment. They claim that it's healthier, which is objectively false based on the fact that it's classified as ultra-processed food. And the ingredients above they claim that's better for the environment are also objectively false. It takes a lot more energy to manufacture fake meat because it is run by factory farms. The very farms that they are saying are bad for the environment, which it is. Not to mention, the GMO crops are heavily sprayed with glyphosate and a host of other chemicals, which is a great course of harm for the environment. Like, glyphosate is banned in so many countries, it's destroying the bee population. It's not good at all for the environment. So, lastly, there's a monopoly about like 6 companies, I kind of mentioned this, that are all for conventional food. 6 companies for about 1 billion people. It's not a good idea. They want to run food like they run an algorithm. Also, like I mentioned, like the plant-based alternative meats, it's basically run on like soy and whatnot. Now, there is nothing wrong with a 100% plant-based diet if that's your thing. Well, there's a right way to do it. It's eating tofurkey is not the way to do it at all. Start with the foundation of real food, first principles. And according to your own ethics, that's all good. But just don't fall into propaganda that these things are in any way, shape, or form good for the body. So real quick, I'm talking about regenerative agriculture, so that's why I brought this up. This is essentially a process of restoring the environment through agriculture. The soil has the ability to store greenhouse gases and fight climate change. The problem is that soil has been destroyed through our current practices. So much so that the data shows that if we have 60 harvests left, if we do nothing, so perhaps 60 years of this, with the soil being decimated, the greenhouse gases go up because there's not enough to sequester carbon. Is it possible to restore nature and expand the world that needs more food in a regenerative way? Of course it is. There's a myth that we can't feed the expanding earth in a regenerative way and we have to use other methods. This is absolutely not true. The numbers that say this come from the land we use to feed a lot of beef, and the majority of carbon emissions are not from beef. It's like 2 or 3% that's actually from beef. I know there's a lot of inflated numbers, like 30%. It's just not at all the truth. That's based on epidemiology. The actual numbers are very low. And they actually come from the feedlot farms, like the things that are not good for the environment. But if you look at regenerative agriculture farms, they actually sequester carbon from the environment. So they actually take the emissions from the environment. So it's actually good for the environment. That's what we don't hear about. The other side of things. Pasture-raised beef creates more grassland and restores our environment. Growing more land means more animals and agriculture. We have about 5 billion acres of land, hectares of land, which is more than enough to feed the population. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the show. For more, you can head over to anthonygastella.com for articles, coaching, and other free resources. Also, if you can, leave a review for the show, let people know what you think, and I would appreciate that so much. Support the mission of freedom. Thanks for being on this mission with me, and I promise to give you more powerful, empowering, great content to help transform your life. Thanks for tuning in.